Christian Parenting.
Understanding our own finances is hard enough, let alone knowing how to teach our children. The Family and Finances podcast hopes to take you from a place of stress, worry, and tension to a place of freedom, peace, and unity. If you're looking for peace of mind, contentment, and confidence in dealing with your finances, this is the podcast for you. And today we're going to talk about a painful topic in our lives. At least it started out that way, really painful. And that is the topic of debt. And our hope is to give the encouragement, the motivation, and the practical advice so that people can eliminate debt and to be free, even though right now they may feel like it's impossible. So we're going to talk about credit card debt, automobile debt, mortgages, and student loan debt, all in today's episode. And I think you would probably agree that we were the poster children of what not to do when it comes to debt.
We were completely clueless.
Yep. We had no advice. We had no real...
We didn't seek advice.
Yeah, and we really didn't have any training in that. We started out with student loan debt and just got worse from there.
Mm-hmm. Thankfully, it wasn't much, and I wanted to eliminate it as quickly as I could, but we'll get into that.
Well, in regard to the student loan debt, yeah, we did get rid of that one, but I had a bad attitude towards debt in that I liked it. And so I thought it was an opportunity for leverage and to, multiply our resources. I was a risk taker, and it didn't bother me to open up a new credit card account or a store account or to go down and buy a car on credit. I thought credit was great. And of course, you were fearing credit and you were fearing this, and we just continued to pile it up.
Well, and early on, we had both incomes, so it didn't seem to bother me looking back. But once children came and I wanted to be home, it was a real problem.
Yeah, we built a budget, even though we didn't really have a budget, but we were thinking we would have dual income for all that time. And so our expenses were based on two incomes. And then when we decided children were coming, we were only going to go down to one income. It didn't work very well.
No, it didn't.
So we had lots of problems. Let's talk a little bit about each one of these debts and give people specific advice, maybe some stories. And let's start with credit cards. We started out with one credit card, and I think at one point in our life, we were carrying 10 credit cards.
No. I don't remember that.
Well,
10?
Let's just say 10 consumer accounts.
Wow.
That's credit cards and store accounts.
Okay.
We would go in and open those store accounts 90 days, same as cash. And if you didn't pay at the end of 90 days, they just made it a minimum payment. And we would say, okay, well, we can make that $20 payment. And the next thing you know, we've got debt all over town. We just did it the wrong way.
We sure did if we had 10. I don't remember 10. That's too long ago. I can't remember that.
Well, today we do it totally differently. We had to come up with a method to pay those off, agree together that we would do it a way that brought sanity into our budget. So let's talk about the best ways to pay off credit card debt.
Well, there's a couple methods that we try to encourage people to follow. You've got to get on a plan and have a disciplined way to pay this off. So the avalanche method is where you attack the highest interest bearing debt first. And that way you save money overall. You're paying less interest in the long run. The other method is the snowball, the debt snowball, where you pay the smallest debt off first so you get the psychological advantage or motivation to keep going.
And I'm going to say there's a third method. Some call it the debt snowflake, where you just pay a little down on your debt whenever you get around to it.
Mm-hmm. Which I don't think I would choose one of the first two.
Well, the first one is the one I like. If you list all of your credit cards and the amount of interest you're paying on each one, and you eliminate that first, you get the most benefit of that. So if you've got a credit card and you're paying 14 or 15% interest, or you're paying late fees regularly, and you get rid of that, even though it may be your biggest balance, you're going to get a huge load off your shoulders.
Well, and it's also important that as a couple, you come to an agreement that you're not going to add to the debt. You're just going to stop using your credit cards. You're going to make sacrifices and you're going to commit to being self-controlled.
Well, you remind me of the turning point for us when we realized we can't do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually went to an all cash budget and we just stopped using them. And we began to pay them off so we could get them closed. And then we agreed we would use only one credit card. And that way we would be able to pay it off every month and we'd never have a balance again. And we haven't had a credit card balance, meaning carried forward any of the debt beyond 30 days for how many years now?
Oh, I don't know. It's been a while.
So we went from being the poster child for being bad with credit cards to them actually becoming advantageous to us
Mm-hmm.
because we collect our airline miles, we don't pay late fees, and we just manage it really, really well. In fact, I think if you can't pay it off at the end of the month, you should stop using it for a long time until you regain self-control.
Right. And it's just really a matter of sacrifice. You stop shopping. It's so easy to use our credit cards today. Somebody recommended don't have your credit card linked to your Amazon account where you have to manually put it in with each purchase. Anywhere you shop and you've got your card linked, take it off so you don't just mindlessly push the buy now button.
Yeah. With just a click of a button, you can go
Right.
into further debt.
Right.
Now, there are people who really struggle with debt, and it's just a huge burden to them. They haven't been able to get out. They haven't been able to be successful. And we recommend they contact Christian credit counselors because they can create a debt management plan that is tailored for that particular family to help them overcome their lack of progress.
Well, and one thing that you didn't address is medical debt. A lot of people don't realize that a lot of hospitals and physicians are willing to work with you as long as you're straightforward and tell them you want to pay. You just can't pay what they want right now.
And I read a statistic recently that the average family files for bankruptcy because they're $300 to $500 a month short in their budget to make ends meet. If you think about how much interest we're paying on debt, if you could just eliminate all the interest in your budget, then you could close that gap.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think about bankruptcy, it truly reminds us of Proverbs 22:7, that the borrower does become a slave to the lender. And we felt that. Back in those days, we were getting collection calls. We were making some late payments. I was juggling, just trying to make it all work. And so we felt the reality that we were slaves to these lenders.
No, and it took us a while to realize how we could cut back. We had a lot of wealthy friends, and we were just thought we were keeping up with them, going out to dinner with them, shopping where they shopped, and we realized, whoa, we cannot continue to do this.
Yeah, we didn't realize that they were paying cash for their trip and we were putting it on the credit card.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were going further behind and it wasn't a problem for them. So getting rid of the credit card debt is a big boost to your budget because you just get so much freedom by not carrying that around with you month after month. Let's talk now about the cars. That's an area where most people spend about 14% of their budget because they're making car payments. Usually they're borrowing for a car, I think now 5 to 7 years you could get a car note for. And that's really, really painful.
Well, and I guess people want new cars because they're safe and have all this new technology, and it's easy to get talked into the payments over a length of time.
Well, some people only ask what the monthly payment will be
Right.
when they walk in to buy a car. And it's like a jigsaw puzzle. If that payment meets what they have left in their budget, then they're going to buy new.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we did that. I'm not condemning anybody
No,
who's
we
done
did.
it. I mean, that picture looked just like us. We bought new, I think the first 2 or 3 cars
No,
that
your
we bought.
dad gave us a new car when we got married, and then we bought a a green Volvo. Remember that?
Yeah, I
Oh, and then
do.
we bought a pickup
Yeah.
and a
And
new van.
yeah, all of
Those were
those
all
had
new.
notes on
Those were
all of
new.
them. All of them had
But
notes
I
on 'em.
remember when we bought that pickup, I could not wait to get rid of that debt. I remember specifically doubling up on payments. I
Yeah.
hated to have to owe on that.
Well, and then we decided no more of that
Right.
because you lose money. You've lost money the minute you drive it off the lot. It
Mhm.
depreciates 20 or 30%. So imagine if you buy a $30,000 car, you drive it home and it's now worth what, 20,000, you know?
No, not quite that low, but
Well,
it's
over
significantly
yeah, you
less.
put 40, 50,000 miles on it and it's going to be you've lost quite a bit of money. So we couldn't afford to do it anymore. And so we had to pay off the cars that we had, drive them as long as we could, and keep paying ourselves that monthly payment until we could go buy one with cash.
Right.
Do you remember the feeling of that, writing a check for a car?
Well, I think at one point, remember that old white car that you bought when we lived in Richardson? That sedan? Did you
No,
pay
I don't.
$100 for it or
Oh,
$1,000? You got it.
I paid $850 for that car. It was a Plymouth Sunbeam hatchback, and it leaked everything I put in it.
I rode in it very infrequently.
You wouldn't ride in it. It leaked water from the radiator. It leaked air from the tires. It leaked oil from the engine. It leaked gasoline from the gas tank. So I carried all of that in the back to refill it when I made stops. I drove that for 2 years without air conditioning in Texas because no more car payments.
Right.
And I remember when I sold it for $850. It had not lost any value in 2 years, and I told the person who bought it everything that was wrong with it, and they said, "Well, at least you're honest." And so it was really the best car I'd ever owned in terms of not losing any money on it.
Well, you probably spent $850 on all the stuff you had to
I had
put
to
in it.
buy I had to carry around with me. It was an embarrassing car, but it wasn't it was helpful to our budget.
Right.
And I think cars have become a little bit of our identity. We get designer cars and we get leather seats and seat warmers and DVD players in the back of the headrest and all of those things that we just decided we can't afford. And so we don't do that anymore.
No, but I think there's a lot of single moms that want something safe to carry their children. And
Well, of
they,
course.
so I mean, I pity them when they go in and these salespeople know how to sell a car and to talk them into, the payments.
Well,
So,
we've always said we need reliable cars. We don't want cars that break down. And so we'll buy a dealer certified used car. And we get to pay cash for them now. So if you've got a car you can trade in or sell and get cash for, you take that money and then whatever you've saved and you write a check for it and you drive it off and you drive it as long as you need it for your job or career. And as long as it's reliable, just keep going.
right.
So right now I'm driving a 2007, so that's 13 years old, and it may last another 10 years. So that's not coming out of our monthly budget. It's been paid for a long time. Your car is paid for.
Hmm.
And so that helps a tremendous amount to not have that debt.
Right.
Let me just mention about leasing cars before I leave there. Some people say, isn't it cheaper to lease a car? No, it is not. Leasing a car means somebody else bought it and they're making money on you to drive it. And I've seen many people that I've talked to get upside down on their lease where they actually owe a payoff amount when they turn it in because they've gone over the mileage allotment. So I would much rather advise you not to lease a car, but just to buy something that you can pay cash for, even if it's $800, even if it's $2,000 car. Drive it for a year, as long as it's reliable, and save until you can get a better one.
Mhm.
So let's go to student loans, Ann. You talked about we had one when we got married, and we paid that off pretty quickly.
Right. But in today's market, student loans, it's almost expected. One of our boys said he didn't know a single person that didn't have a student loan when he was going to school.
Well, I remember he called us and said, "Mom and Dad, are we rich?" And I said, "No, why are you asking?" He said, "Because I don't have a student loan and everybody else does, because it's just become so common for paying your way through school." But let's just say you have a student loan. It's not forgivable in bankruptcy. somebody is going to have to pay for it, even if it's your heirs. So in our case, we decided right after college we'd get rid of that first.
Hmm.
And because we had two incomes, we used your income to double up on payments and to get rid of it.
Hmm.
And I think I felt a lot of freedom from that and went out and started borrowing other ways.
Well, I think there's lots of ways people can restructure their student loans. I'm not really familiar with all those ways. You probably are, but definitely look into that and make sure it's not a scam.
Well, I think you should pay off your student loans as quickly as possible. Some people say, well, they're going to be with me for life. I'll just drag it out. But it's really good to just knock that one out as soon as possible. I would say get rid of the credit cards first, the car loans second, then the student loans would be third on my priority list. And I definitely wouldn't take out student loans for your children. Our
Mm-mm.
goal was when our children graduated from college and threw the cap and, into the air on graduation day, that they were truly celebrating and not entering into a time of massive student loan debt. So we've, by God's grace, been able to take that position and live that out.
Well, we always emphasize that they study hard and try to get scholarships. I mean, universities have money that they're going to award to somebody, so we emphasize that.
Yeah, we told our boys that their best job they could have would be to earn good grades because those scholarships would be worth far more than somebody would pay them on a minimum wage. If you think about the value of a scholarship long term, it is really a high return on good grades.
Well, and I think one thing as a parent, it's better if a student needs a loan, I would recommend the student take it out because they're the ones who are going to have to be responsible to pay it off.
Yeah. Yeah, not the parents or the
Right,
grandparents.
right.
Yeah, we've known far too many couples or counseled people or families where the parents or grandparents have gotten a real bind over that. There's one area where people go into debt that we really haven't mentioned here, and that's on large purchases like furniture or home improvements.
Appliances.
Yeah, appliances. It is always good to have a savings account ready for that because the reality is you're going to need it. You're going to need to replace some furniture, or the washer and dryer is going to go out, or the hot water heater is going to go out. And that's just a matter of saving in your budget and saving up for those large purchases. So you don't have to go into the store and ask for credit, and you don't have to use a credit card for that.
Hmm.
And we've been able to do that. And a lot of that comes from just being frugal in other areas of our life.
And that's, again, it goes back to making sacrifices and being disciplined.
Let's go to the home mortgage because this is where there's also a lot of pain. People ask, should they rent or buy, and which is better? So I'm going to just give my take on that. We've done both. I'm actually a pretty big advocate for renting.
Hmm.
People say, well, you're just throwing money away. No, you're not throwing it away. You're getting a place to live. You're also getting some flexibility.
Right. And there have been several points in our lives where renting was the best decision we should have made, and we enjoyed those homes.
A lot of it has to do with your job. If your job is secure or insecure, if your family is growing, if you are needing to just save some money so you don't have all that overhead of maintenance and taxes and the other things that go with home ownership. So I think renting is a good decision. If you decide you're ready to buy a house, you and I believe, and we've seen this over and over and over, that you need a healthy down payment of at least 20%. Because if you don't do that and your home value changes, you could be in real trouble even to make your mortgage payment.
Mm-hmm. You always emphasize buying in the right location. You want to buy in a good school district if possible, and trying to find an area that's appreciating.
Well, what I like to think of, Ann, is I want to buy a house that other people would buy from me. And I think about resale before I ever buy a house so that you don't get stuck with something nobody else wants. In fact, it's good to buy a home in a high value area where there's a little bit of competition for the houses.
Mm-hmm.
That means that it's probably going to exist when you go to sell your house.
Right.
So let's talk about financing a home and the different kinds of mortgages. When we look at it, there's really, I guess, a handful of options to finance a home. By the way, about 50% of Americans live without a mortgage, and they either were able to pay cash for the house they're in or they were able to get it paid off, and they are completely mortgage free, which is great. You wouldn't think it would be that high, but it still is that high that people live mortgage free. So there's a long term mortgage that's usually 30 years in our country. Fortunately, we don't have the Japanese mortgages, which go up to 90 years, but we have 30-year mortgages. There's the short term, which is 20, 15, or 10-year mortgages. Then there's the variable or the adjustable rate mortgages where you get a rate for 3 to 5 years. And then there's the interest-only mortgage.
Well, we haven't always done fixed rates. What about that first house we bought?
First house, we had adjustable rate mortgage because mortgage rates were 18% at that time. Can you imagine?
Mm-mm.
And today, they're at a historic low. I think you can get a mortgage for under 3%. Which is just phenomenal. It's the reason that the real estate market is so red hot right now.
Yes, and if people are paying a high interest on a home, they really should consider refinancing right now.
Yeah, it's a great time to refinance. So we recommend that you take a 30-year mortgage. And the reason that I've always said that, 20% down 30-year mortgage, is it gives you flexibility to have a lower payment, but then to double up on your payments and get out of it as quickly as possible. And that gives you a low payment and an opportunity to pay it off quickly. Now, if you can afford a 10-year or 15-year mortgage going in, by all means do that. But if you can't, then do the 30-year. And there's a couple of methods that we've used to reduce our mortgage quickly, Ann.
Well, make an extra payment
per year,
whether that's, a certain amount per month or just one lump sum at the end of the year. Paying twice a month instead of a one payment per month method. What else?
Well, and then if you get a bonus or some extra money, you contact your mortgage lender and say, please apply this towards the principal.
Mm-hmm.
And so your principal amount gets reduced and you can re-amortize your note. And that eliminates so much of the interest that you're going to pay long term. And so in our case, we have a 30-year mortgage, and our goal is to cut it in half and to get it paid for in 15. And we're using a variety of means to accomplish that, but mostly just having a goal which allows us to deny ourselves some of the other things we want, like driving a new car and taking, some of the less expensive choices in other areas of our life. We make choices where we save money on what we buy and how we spend it, so we can apply it towards one day being completely mortgage-free.
We actually looked at a zero lot line home several weeks ago thinking, well, let's just cash out, sell this house, buy something cheaper. And then we found out how much our home had appreciated and thought, well, maybe we ought to stay put.
Well, and even the cost of moving would not be good for us right now. And we could save the cost of moving and repairing and remodeling something else. And so I think many experts call it the friction cost of a move, the money that just sort of evaporates. We decided to avoid that and to stay put and to just continue to stay the course of getting mortgage free.
Well, one thing we haven't addressed is having a budget, a plan, to eliminate debt. And Crown offers numerous things. Should we go over those?
Well, let's talk about some of the tools that we do have available. One of the ones that I like is we have a little short video course that's helped so many people. One of our staff members actually produced it and told their own story about learning to become debt-free. I highly recommend that course. That's available for free online.
Well, and then we've got the Easy Guide to a Budget You Love,
which is a wonderful way to just get unified with your spouse. It takes you through a series of questions and helps you to make decisions on areas where you can save money and make a plan.
Right. 5 Steps to Debt-Free Living.
That's the one I was talking about. Yeah.
How about the Easy Guide to the Budget You Love?
Yes.
Just learning how to budget and realize it's a tool just to help you. It's not a hardship. It's actually a great benefit. We've got the Money Life program. You already recommended
Christian Credit Counselors.
Yes.
So, for people who this is an area of pain in their life, I just want to give them a little bit of hope, Ann.
Hmm.
You and I really went from being way under the pile of debt to the point that it looked like an impossible situation. And God brought us through that, and we worked our way through it. We learned our lessons the hard way, the painful way. And now we're living with just a little bit more to go on our mortgage, and we're done. And we don't want to enter our senior years or retirement years with any debt
No.
whatsoever.
Mm-mm.
And we're on course to achieve that.
Right. And I think working together as a couple, praying through it, asking God for wisdom and discernment, and just really committing to educate yourselves on debt and learning to be a wise steward.
And I think something on my heart is to mention that becoming debt-free can become an idol. And I've seen people on the sort of flip side of this become debt-free and believe that they now can do whatever they want to do financially or with money. And that's really not true at all. I think we're all responsible as stewards for how we spend every dollar, whether we have debt or not. And it's certainly better to be out of debt than to be in debt. But the Bible emphasizes our faithfulness to God with generosity and with preparation for the future and taking care of our family. And we came to the conclusion that debt did not help us achieve any of that. It wasn't good for us, especially for me, that I lack self-control over it. I wanted to use debt to leverage and to take risks. I had to learn the hard way that it can really become a form of slavery. So we started out as a poster child of what not to do. And by God's grace today, we're in a position to help people to say, if we can do it,
Anybody can.
anybody can do it, because we had so much that we did wrong.
Mhm.
And we had to pull out of a major, major hole. And that's why I think I have such compassion for people who are hurting in this area of their life.
Mhm.
I would never condemn them. I would never try to use shame or guilt for the mistakes they've made, because I've made all of them. And at the same time, I would never think that it's hopeless for anybody.
No, I think it's very important to have a mentor. I wish, looking back, if we'd had somebody we could have gone to just ask questions. What's the best thing, best practice? What should we avoid? Just simple things. We could have really learned a lot and saved ourselves from a lot of pain.
Well, we've always talked about, especially for single moms, to have a financial advisory board.
Mhm.
People from church who are not trying to sell them anything, who have no conflict of interest, who've demonstrated wisdom with their finances, and just once a quarter meet with them and review your finances and get their counsel. We have a friend that calls her group that she uses for that her ironing board. She meets with the ironing board to iron out the problems in her life. And so I think that's a really good practice. The Bible says that our plans succeed if we seek counsel.
Mhm. Well, and you know how valuable you feel when the boys come to you with questions. So I think going to parents, wise parents, is always a good option too.
Well, even your own mom and dad,
Mhm.
to ask them for their advice and what they've done in their life that worked or didn't work, and to get their advice for how they would see a decision that you're trying to make. I love to talk to my dad about these things.
Well, I think we've covered it.
Well, to those who are with us, I hope that we've encouraged you to know that you are not alone. There are resources out there for you. God can intervene and help you in any circumstance that you may find yourself in. So, Ann, I just thank God for where we are today, and we're available to help couples. We've written a book on some of our mistakes, and we want to see them go through this journey and come out the other side the way we have.
Mhm. Look forward to talking about the next topic.
Yeah, we're going to talk about children next time, which is
Mhm.
another another big topic.